Good day, everyone. How you doing? Great to see you here. I see a lot of chatter already in the chat on Crowdcast. Keep it up. Let us know where you are joining us from. I have it on really good authority that there's 275 people signed up for this, and I know that we are going out on LinkedIn Live too. So it's going to be an amazing discussion. So to begin with, I actually want to hand over the floor to my two co-panelists. I would love you to give us a brief introduction about who you are, what it is you do, and what we're going to be talking about today. So Tess, let's start with you.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. I have an organisation called Capability, AI Capability, and what we specialise in is providing AI solutions in HR. And I spend a lot of my time at the moment doing a lot of events talking about HR and AI because it's so new, and helping people to really understand, coming from a HR background myself and a techie background, it's being able to see where the gaps are, where we can help, and where we can provide solutions that really help drive HR and increase productivity, work within culture, and help with all those things that have been sort of holding us back in HR to be really successful going forward. So that's what we do. We work with organisations all over the world, building HR AI solutions.
Fantastic. And how long have you been doing this? How long has your business been operational for?
Just under 2 years now. So,
Amazing.
and before that, I did consulting, and I worked within HR extensively, actually, as an interim and as a L&D director for a number of years. So I've kind of done
And
all the
how
different jobs.
That's amazing. And how fantastic that AI is actually opening up a whole new world where we can have new businesses, we can have new roles. I find it fascinating. I mean, we probably wouldn't have thought 5 years ago that you could open a business focusing about, on AI and how HR professionals can use AI better. That's amazing. I love
It
this.
is,
I love technology.
and I think the thing about it that's really interesting is I can put my HR hat on and look at it from what are the risks, what do we need to consider here, how's this going to affect our employees, how can we train people about this, and then I can put my techie head on and look at the solutions, and some of them are
Mm,
so exciting. People bring me new stuff every day, and I just think,
amazing.
oh yeah, this is really exciting to be in.
Fantastic. I love that. Excellent. Mikel, over to you. We've got the rose between the two thorns. Tell us
Thank
about
you.
yourself.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I'm a co-founder at Driven Cloud. And for some more background, Driven Cloud is a software as a service. So I mostly have more of a techie background, but with a specialized niche towards recruitment. And basically, the main thing I'll be bringing to today's discussion is basically a more practical, hands-on, overview and insights on what technology nowadays can actually achieve within the recruitment sector, and actually give them practical examples on how you can actually then enhance your role workflows as well.
Excellent. Love that. Thank you very much, Mikel. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I am a proud member of the recruiting gym run by Angela Cripps, which is an amazing organization out of the UK. In my own time, I'm a global talent sourcing trainer. I do a lot of keynote speaking all over the place, and I thoroughly enjoy what I do every day. I have a keen interest in AI just because I think it's going to be really disruptive across every single industry out there. But obviously, my key focus is what it's going to do to the recruitment industry, the talent sourcing space, which is why we have actually launched this webinar series with assistance from Angela, who we must give a big shout out to. So, Tess, what I wanted to discuss with you, being the HR professional that you are, what I'm hearing a lot, and it's one of those roles, is when someone asks you what you do, I always think twice about how do I explain what I do. Because as soon as I say I'm a recruiter, I feel like I'm going to be lumped in with like the secondhand car salesman, the estate agent, because someone has always had a negative experience with the recruiter or somewhere during the recruitment process. So I do always think twice about that. And one of the biggest things that causes people a headache is this ghosting. Now, dealing with a lot of recruiters like I do, training a lot of them, I'll hear from them, yes, but our candidates ghost us. But I also hear from a lot of candidates that recruiters ghost them. And I think this has got to do for it's a result of several things. What are your thoughts around this whole horrible thing of ghosting?
I agree. I mean, it's a difficult time at the moment in recruitment. let's be honest, it's the toughest time I've ever seen in recruitment. There's a lot of green open to work tabs up in LinkedIn. You just have to look at those to realize that people are suffering at the moment. So the worst time to be ghosting people is now, in my opinion. I have always had really good relationships with recruiters over the years. They've put me into companies, or I've put them into they've come in to help me with people in companies. But I do think that there's nothing worse than being excited. I do think with recruitment, you're very much the center stage with someone. They really like you, they love you, and you feel really upbeat. And then you go through the interviews and then you don't hear anything. And I think there's nothing worse than that feeling. So I think it's a really big opportunity for us in this industry to make sure we get it right. And I do think, I know Mikel's going to talk about his lovely solution, but it has such an opportunity here to make sure you're on your game and to really make sure that you're supported through technology to be able to get back to everybody. There's such a slog to do admin and keep on top of it all. I've been in recruitment. I started in recruitment many years ago, and we used to have to do everything. They call it the double-edged sale, where you're talking to the person, you're talking to the guys. I mean, it is a tough job, but it's also harder when you've got lots of admin to do on top of it. So I think with AI, you've got an opportunity here, not only to find really good candidates, to set it up so it's not biased towards candidates, but also to have a much bigger pool to look for candidates in, and be on top of it. So, you can now give updates to your colleagues, give updates to how recruitment's going. And, I think you in the future, you'll be much more able to chase those managers up that haven't done their recruiting, or, be much more on top of it. So I see AI as an asset, really.
Absolutely. So it was really interesting because the hour before I jumped on to, host this webinar was with the team down in Bournemouth. And one of the things that popped up from them was, how do we be less transactional in the recruiting space, and how do we build those long-term relationships? And I always say that when things go down in recruitment, and I mean, when you've been in recruitment for as long as I have, feels like donkey's years, that it's like a roller coaster. You have your really high highs, you have your lows, you sometimes go loop to loop when no one knows what's really going on. But to be honest, it's just the nature of the beast. And when things are low, like it is at the moment, this is when we should be capitalizing. And we should actually, as you say, be giving back to the industry and being there for individuals. On that note, I know that ghosting is something that spans across many industries, but what were some of your pain points, sitting internal from an HR perspective, that you think AI could potentially assist, not only ghosting? What are some of the other issues that you think?
I think it's the contact. I think it's keeping up that contact, keeping up the relationship. I tend to think that how I can speak from myself, but also from being a recruiter. You don't have a big bandwidth because sometimes you get dropped in to do a lot of recruitment, or you're doing very senior level recruitment, which suddenly has a very short time frame to get someone. So I think with AI, you can set up a database which is able to anticipate the peaks and troughs better. So for workforce planning, and I know Mikel's dying to show this, but for workforce planning, it's fantastic because, you can then work and automate what you're doing in advance, have your potential candidates ready. And I think you can become more consultative within HR when you're talking to prospective recruiters in the organisation. You can say, these are the people we've already got. Do you want to have a look at them? We can organise, you to talk to them. So it's all quite much more consultative rather than sort of jumping out and trying to get people on board. And you can set up, I'm taking away Mikel's thing here, but you can set up talent pools as well, which we've been doing. We've been doing alumni and things like that. But I think it's about the organisation. To me, I think that's the toughest bit. It's having your finger on this so that you can do updates, show people solutions, and then have the time to spend on the interviews and all the other bits which need that human touch.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm all for that. So I'm a real believer in, using AI to free up more time from the HR team to be more human. I mean, there's a reason why there's an H in HR, right? It's the
Yes.
human. And we often need to bring that human element, back into, the people building relationships on many different levels.
It's so true.
Mikel, is there anything that you would like to add around this? I know that you are dying to show us Jobin, and we're dying to see it, trust me. But anything that you would like to add? I mean, were these considerations when you built Jobin?
Yeah, so the main, I guess, considerations we took into play was, well, for the most part, we initially had a recruitment background. So I guess the first step was seeing our own shortcomings, our own, I guess, difficulties, and saying, why not develop a solution? And with time, with years, we ended up then saying, like I said, adding more to it. And what treatment calendars ended up becoming is basically somewhat of an all-in-one type of functionality throughout the entire workflow, just to help out in, I'd say, any step in that recruitment workflow, from sourcing to screening to, of course, then also actually the interactions with them. So basically, outreach campaigns for, I guess, making sure that you're not mistakenly overworked or forgetting about sending reminders or forgetting about sending, I guess, for example, a rejection or say rejection email to those contacts that end up, I guess, unfortunately, not passing the interview checks or the evaluation steps and so on. But yeah, I guess, not to hog too much screen time here, but
and we're going to get onto your demo of how
yeah.
you've done this, and I love the way that you've approached your software with a recruiting mindset, because this is something that it's a fine balance. I'm often asked by people that I'm training, how often should I keep in touch with people? And some people would love an email from you every day, and some people once a week is fine. So it really is difficult. So I think ghosting also has different levels and ranges depending on who you are. Different cultures are different, so it really is something that's quite difficult. Right. Now, I don't know if either of you saw this morning, I actually had a little bit of a rant on my LinkedIn post. And the reason why I did that was I received an email advertising some new software. And when I read it, I know the company that it came from. When I read it, I thought, no. This doesn't sound right. This sounds like someone's generated with ChatGPT. So this was off the back of a lot of experiences this week of looking at people's LinkedIn posts and looking at what they've written and saying, I know the person, I know how they speak, I've received emails from them in the past. This post doesn't sound like them. So then what I do at that point is I copy and paste the post or the email. I go to one of my favorite websites at the moment called zerogpt.com. I pop it in, and what I actually see is that 95 or even 100% of that message is generated by ChatGPT. Now, none of these people I know battle with their command of the English language. Okay, it's their first language, English. So I don't know whether it's a case of that they're being lazy. They think ChatGPT does a better job than them. But for me, I'm on the fence. I even had someone comment on the post over there of saying, I had a candidate use this when they applied for a job, and no, it didn't affect whether I brought them in for an interview. So I'd love to know from your perspective, Tess, as a AI use in HR perspective, is that, what are your thoughts around that? Does it irritate you? Do you think it's all right? Do you think people should actually give credit? I mean, there's people writing entire books at the moment.
There is.
Using AI. What is your stance on this? It fascinates me.
It's an interesting. I think the thing that's going to be the most interesting about this is how it's legislated.
Yes, which is happening soon in the UK, isn't it?
It's happening. They're in consultation at the moment. It's something I spent a lot of time discussing. There was an interesting article today about scraping, and I don't know. You've probably heard about this, but it's been actually brought into Dutch law. So scraping is when you go out and you basically plagiarize other people's stuff. And OpenGPT does this, but it actually sources it as well. So it is quite a grey area at the moment that people are discussing. I think with ChatGPT, it opens up grammatically opportunities for people that feel less confident about how they write things. And I do think that if you think about how we've changed in how we write things, we did grammar at school, and I'm a bit older than you, but now things are done by text, so things are much more shorthand. So I think it's changing, and I don't think people in the future will be that bothered about how they get the information. I think it's going to be based on also how the AI is researching the information about people as well, because how many companies ask for cover notes, how many people want long emails really from people that are applying. Do you have time to read them all? So I think that whole thing about how you manage that whole process will change with the AI. And you can get ChatGTP to write in your own tone and write in your own style. So you could be a little bit more clever with it, and make it a little bit more user friendly if you're going to use it. But
absolutely. So Tess, I hear what you're saying there, but I think all of the posts that people are using ChatGPT, because I find ChatGPT incredibly verbose. I mean, I couldn't go to dinner with it. I'd be like jumping in and like trying to get it to finish and get very frustrated. They're too long, and get to the point.
It starts also, and the thing is, I say to everyone in HR, the future for you guys is about governance and editing, quite frankly. You use ChatGTP, but don't use it as it's a given. You need to use it to write bits for you. It's like you asking a colleague, could you just do a paragraph on X for me? And then you look at it and you think, is it going to help? Is it interesting? Ask it to It's quite low level in how it researches as well. There's a lot better tools out there. So I think in future we'll be good at picking different tools and using them for different things, but you still need that experience in there to edit what's going through. And also, you're right, it is very verbose. I know when it's written by ChatGTP, because it always starts with, it's going to revolutionize, or something like that. And you think, definitely.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And no disrespect, but it's all with American spelling as well. And that's my thing, is I spend a lot of time thinking, no, I'm not having that word in there, and that doesn't fit. So I think it will get better, but I do think that we'll have our own chat GTPs. We can have our own, bots doing stuff for us, so we can adapt that going forward.
So two things on that really interestingly is that paying for OpenAI's ChatGPT, if you do that and you've got GPT-4, you can construct and custom make your own GPT, which I've done. And every time I send, like a longer than normal email, I copy and paste and feed in that information to say, this is my tone, this is how I speak, hoping to create, some kind of wonder child, that I can use that as opposed to just using a generalist response. And the second thing that was really interesting that I want to chat with you about is that what came out very strongly in the post, besides a lot of people getting quite irate and probably using ChatGPT for their posts, so coming from a very defensive standpoint, was how we actually need to get better at the prompting. So how do you see that playing out, Tess? What are your thoughts around that?
I have personally amassed a huge amount of prompts. Luckily, in the AI community, people send me prompts all the time, and I try them out. They're amazing, and they're just great starts. So yes, I think be an editor, but be a good prompter as well, because that will save you an awful lot of time. And you learn that all the time as you go along. The same as we learned with e-learning, what courses worked and what didn't, things like that. So AI, you can get prompt books online. I've got prompt stuff if people want to contact me, and I can send it to them on any subject, to be honest, at the moment, and they work.
That's brilliant. What are kind of the trends that you're noticing on the prompts that work? I mean, because I honestly believe that this is something that we need to get better at. Is it the length? Is it the amount of detail? Is there a set format? What do you think?
I think it's just being very clear on what you're specifying that you want. And Mikel's probably better at this than me because he's more techie. But
I'm getting to him,
but how I use them for is, people send me stuff to try out. If I want to put a presentation together in a certain way, I might go onto Canva and I might use different prompts for that. If I'm using ChatGPT-4 and I want to research something in a specific way, then I might use them for that. I've actually used ChatGPT-4 to look at some of the psychology Hogan stuff that I've done, and to assess and put an overview together and I found that excellent. So I've actually developed my own prompts in different things as well, which I found
Okay.
to be really useful. But you can develop your own solutions all the time.
Mm, absolutely. It's just a case of training it and I think using it more frequently.
Yeah,
One of the things that I always talk about in my AR for recruiter training is that, don't accept the first response. And I
yeah,
think that's where a lot of people go wrong is that, I need this quick, short, may I say, lazy kind of prompt. And whatever comes back, copy, paste, that's my LinkedIn post. There we go. I'm done,
yeah, yeah,
tick
yeah.
that box. And I think that that's where the danger comes in.
Yeah, and I think, if you want to put an article together, you need to think about how people are going to read it. I am quite theoretical, quite old fashioned in how I think things should be researched. So if I'm using ChatGPT, I'm asking it to research certain things in a certain way and to give me certain information, which I'm expecting back. The same way as I'd ask colleagues, could you tell me if you've got this? Or
Yes.
so to me, it's like browsing in a library and being
Yep.
able to get information quite quickly. As I said, it's surface level, some of it, because it uses Bing. So
Yeah.
there are some academic ones that you can use that are much deeper. Plus the fact I've amassed a massive library of different types of AI tools that you can use, and I try most of them out. So I would always say to
Mm,
people, just keep learning. I love learning and
mm.
exploring. And with Chat GTP, it's not going to tell you off if you ask
Yeah. No,
something. It just
exactly.
say I can't do this. But I find Chat GTP for limited on the pictures. That's the bit that I feel is disappointing personally. But that'll get better. And there's other
I,
AI that.
I must admit, I have been defaulting a lot lately to go and skip OpenAI, even though I pay for it, but go to Perplexity AI and
Yeah,
Claude
very good.
AI.
Claude's
Claude's
very
only recently been able to access it down here in my part of the world, which is South
good.
Africa. So it was a little bit slow, but I had a lot of my American friends really raving about it. So I snuck it on a VPN a couple of months back. But I'm really enjoying using those two just because you get a different sort of response. And as you
Yeah.
say, as a human being, we can pick and choose the right tools. And I like both of those.
And I think the more you master them and the more you become adept at using them, the better you can be at what you do. I can remember writing training courses like Train the Trainer for days
Yeah.
and weeks putting
Yeah.
courses together. This way,
Yeah.
you can put an overview together in minutes. I mean, that's
Yes.
fantastic. That's got to be an improvement
Yeah.
on what we were doing before. Now, you have the education to put the bits in between and you know
Yeah.
structure it, but it saves all that admin that we used to do to putting the
Yeah.
agendas together and everything else. So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of benefit from using it, and I think it's just a
Absolutely.
case of trying it really.
100%. Absolutely. So another thing that often pops up is how much human is there behind the AI? And I know Mikel's going to be showing us Jobin soon and all those things, and I'm glad that the humans behind Jobin have recruitment experience. But what are your thoughts around that? I remember, let's show my age here. I'm not really 21, but go back like 15 years in the IT space, and I would have to bring candidates into the office to do a technical assessment because if they were at home, they might cheat or they
Yeah.
might ask someone else or they might use Google. Now, what are our thoughts around, getting new people into the organization and running them through assessments? They might just use ChatGPT or any other AI tool. So, what are your thoughts around that, Tess?
It's quite interesting because a lot of senior executive recruitment that I've done in the past has been using Hogan assessments,
Okay.
and people have been using Chat GTP for Hogan assessments. Well, actually,
Mm.
they've developed a tool which can check that. So, so I think that there'll be a lot of scrutiny around how questions are answered because there's already a lot of evidence on how people answer questions. I mean, I'm not an expert in that field, but it's pretty obvious if somebody's come out all one way or all another that something's not
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I agree with you on technology. I mean, we used to bring people in because it needed to be invigilated and there was a time
Yes.
frame to it. And I've run big assessment centres where we've done that. With AI, it's much more nuanced, so you can actually do much more interactive stuff. I'm working with someone at the moment and I probably people scream when they hear this, but they've developed an AI teacher.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's absolutely incredible. And for key skill level 2 and 3, it's actually a teddy bear, and it interacts with kids and talks to them and
Oh,
helps them with
wow.
homework, gives them instant feedback, encouragement, and everything. So so much exciting stuff coming.
Yeah.
It's just a case of start small, try something, and then grow with it, because there's great things that are coming out, but it's very new to the market at the moment in a lot of
Absolutely.
cases.
And as you say, every day there's some
Yeah.
kind of a new AR tool that's out there and that's coming to the fore. Mikel, I've got something else that I want to add to this, but have you got anything to add to what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so I guess lots of uh, I say valid arguments that I wanted to potentially I guess enhance on, in the sense that AI is, as mentioned, somewhat of a double-edged sword, because it's portrayed as the easier solution, which then ends up attracting a more lazy approach, but the lazy approach isn't actually going to get the job done.
Yeah.
So
That's so true.
so you could even say it's kind of like a trap, or let's say you could say a honey trap, because you say, oh, it's nice, I can be lazy, and that ends up causing you more trouble. Whereas it only actually provides those desired benefits if you go through trouble and learn how to properly prompt engineer, or effectively teach the GPT what do you want it to do, or what styling to use. And an easy, I'd say comparison that I like using, just to basically explain it in a more easy fashion, is that AI has, I'd say, evolved a lot from throughout the years, that you can generally consider it like you're talking to a person, but that person doesn't have the environmental, it doesn't have, let's say, the five senses. So what you would normally, not take into consideration as a person is, because you don't notice it, but it's subconscious, is basically the environment you find yourself in, and basically the what you perceive with your senses. The AI can simulate a conversation with someone, but since it doesn't know the environment, doesn't know the context, doesn't know those nuances that as a person you don't really, I guess, have to mention, because it just kind of can tell
Yeah,
you.
it happens.
Uh,
Yeah.
the trap ends up being that you think that with AI you don't need to specify those criteria,
Yeah.
and if you don't specify them, the AI starts making, for example, a nice post which is properly written in English and everything, but without those nuances, without knowing, I guess, those details that normally when talking with a person you just figure that they understand them automatically. The AI falls out there, and you end up getting just a generic, bland, kind of like fluff type reply that at the end of the day is just words without actually saying anything. So yeah,
So
basically, yeah.
basically, I think, Mikel, is that we can't assume that we're talking to a human being who has all of the life experiences that another human being would have, that we would potentially be asking the same question to.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think
But
it's
not necessarily
Yeah.
exclusively the experiences, because as you mentioned, basically ChatGPT and basically all GPTs overall in AI, and basically the learning model they're using is effectively copying what has been written by others. Now this presents a different problem, because you then end up saying there's the risk that AI might end up learning by copying what another AI has done. So there's just kind of like a saturation in the cycle. So that's definitely something that needs to be tackled then later on. But as far as basically copying contents that have been written down, those contents that it's copying from have the experience. So sort of you could say that GPT is as if you're talking with someone that has all the experiences, but it doesn't
Yeah.
really know what you want. so it's kind of just going to jump too much to different conclusions, or it's going to stay too vague because it doesn't have the context that you actually were interested in, that you kind of just figured that a normal human would have actually been able to catch on to and adapt to.
I think it
Excellent.
depends on how you use it as well. I mean, I was talking to a bank recently, and they were sharing with me how their operators who do very mundane tasks, repetitive tasks, they're looking at the data, and they're getting all the keystrokes and how they respond to people and how they answer queries and all that stuff ready for them to launch their own AI version. And that these people have call sheets. I've worked in sales where you've had a sheet, you follow that sheet, you shouldn't
Yeah.
be from it. So we are asking people to be quite robotic in some of the things they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to free those people up to do something else that, you know, is less repetitive. The only thing is, if you are, you know, I do think I understand what you're saying, Mikel, but I do think it, again, as I said, it goes with the warning that there should be humans involved. Like with this AI teacher, there are humans
Yeah.
as well in the whole thing. It's not, you don't just launch it and leave it to do its own thing. It's like a child. You need to love
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to take care of what you're doing.
Okay. Excellent. So one more thing that I want to talk about when it comes to AI, and it's where I see a lot of people going wrong, and Tess, you know, we've chatted about it before, is that there's new technologies all the time. Like it's actually humanly impossible to keep up with all of the tech and still earn a living and do your job and all of those things. So I always try and explain to people that figure out what your problem is and then which AI tool can fix it. So I had a company that wanted me to do some training with them, except they had about 50 of their team members that were based in France and only wanted to learn in French. I found an AI tool that could, you know, take my spoken videos on my online academy and convert them into French subtitles. What are your thoughts around that? Because a lot of people just don't get started in AI because they don't know where, they don't know what.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? I mean, you must have a lot of clients phoning you up and say, "Great, Tess, we know you from the HR world. There's now this whole AI thing. What next?" How do you answer that question?
Well, a lot of it, as I said, a lot of it is us recommending tools that we've tried that
Okay.
we recommend, but also we're developing some new tools as well. One at the moment that we're working on is about when you do engagement surveys, you actually get all those free text comments. And we had a client come to us who has 150,000 users, all in different languages. They have about 15,000 free text comments that this person has to collate over a weekend and put into a report ready
That's a
for
lot.
her boss on Monday. So we've actually we've developed an AI solution which will take the data, put it into a report based on what we've asked it to do. It will translate even in the language nuances of all the different languages and help
Wow.
to produce a report with recommendations out of that information. So that's a game
That's
changer
incredible.
for me.
And how, I mean, that must have saved hours.
It saves hours and it takes minimal time to run. You know,
Okay.
once we've got the data, and we can even synthesize the data and just, you know, it's totally anonymized, so you know there's no issue
Yeah.
with privacy or GDPR or anything like that around it. So these little tools are things that you can bring in quite quickly to work on in your organization. You don't have to go big. You don't have to go Watson or AWS straight away. You can just bring in little tools, try them out. Obviously working with the technical team as well, so they approve it,
Yeah.
and bring them in and get them up and running. So that's what we say is, you know, what are you looking to do? But we're hoping we've got a range of solutions that immediately help people, because everyone does engagement surveys. I've done a lot of them in the
Yeah.
past, and these are the irritating things that take a lot of time to do.
Yeah. The admin intensive. And I think that that's where AI is just excellent. Where, you know, just take away my admin, just let me talk to people and I'll be a happy person.
Exactly.
You
And
know?
on HR metrics as well, that's another area that we're doing a lot of area of work on as well, because it's looking at performance and, you know, metrics and the future of the workforce and all that side of it as well.
Okay. Super interesting. Wow, that's great. So Tess, you did a demo yesterday with Mikel on
I
Jobbin.
did.
I've also had a demo before. What was the one thing that impressed you the most about Jobbin?
I think the fact that you can take the LinkedIn contacts, I think that's amazing, and put them in. The vast amount of people that you can search for, and I absolutely love the funnel that shows you where you are. I love pictorial updates. I think that's amazing.
Okay.
But I tell you, Mikel has designed this so carefully that it's a recruiter's dream. When you look at it, you think, oh, that makes so much sense. That's exactly what I've been looking for. So I was very impressed, I must say.
It's so refreshing to hear of a tool in the recruiting space that actually has been designed by recruiters.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I I think
yeah,
that
super
that's
interesting.
yeah.
So Mikel, what I'd love for you to do is for you to share your screen and show us. I mean, Tess and I have spoken about several topics from, ghosting, overworked HR departments, about the use of AI in HR. What can Jobin do to really assist us to be more effective, especially that piece that we were talking about at the beginning, which is like the communication, because I often refer to as a CRM or an ATS as a graveyard, to be honest, because it's pointless having all of these people there if you don't keep in touch with them. So, Mikel, let's see what you can show us for the rest of our time together.
Thank you then. I'd say, yeah, I can go ahead and share my screen, but to give over, I'd say a bit more context on what, I'm just selecting the screen here. So to give some more context on basically the overall, I'd say, issue we're trying to solve here is basically, yeah, once again, we need to help save time in the overall recruitment process. So,
Yes.
Of course, the entire workflow has lots of steps that are very time consuming. And the main thing that AI...
Don't we know it?
yeah. And the main thing AI and basic general automation can help you the most out of, basically just efficiency-wise, what it's going to prove the most value in, is of course automating those manual tasks. As Tess has mentioned earlier, in fact, for example, you had to scan through tons of documents and needed to make a report out of all that data. That's something where the AI, the automation has all the basically the knowledge, the expertise to properly make a summary, and you don't really need to give it some environmental nuances or context in too much regard in that sense. So for a more manual type of task, have AI do that, have that streamline the work for you so that the humans can then do the more human actual work and, let's say, talk with people, manage the interviews, and actually better spend proper communication. Because at the end of the day, if there's bad time management, you'll have to neglect one aspect or the other in the workflow. And that oftentimes is going to be, for example, the candidates that end up getting ghosted.
Absolutely.
So overall,
and you don't want to drop a ball because, as you mentioned, so many processes from end to end in this recruiting space that you don't want to forget about someone or something. It's crucial.
So, like I say, I'm going to jump a bit more to the actual screen I'm sharing here. There's a bit of an example workgroup I have set up. But overall, the steps that you effectively automate is both from a sourcing side, which was like I said, the part aspect that Tess mentioned being most interested in, because once again, it's one of the most manual aspects you have in a workflow, and that is I need to find the contact that interests me, and I need to transfer over all that data. So a profile that you have can automatically be imported over from LinkedIn, and you have all the career information, all the skills, all the accomplishment skills, company information, and all that automatically downloaded for you, so you don't have to manage and transfer that all manually. So that's basically one of the most easy way to actually
So, Mikel, quick question for all the recruiters out there. You don't have to have a LinkedIn recruiter license to do this, right?
Correct, yeah. So fully free LinkedIn, you don't need to have any, like I said, specific plans. And without limitations, you can easily drag over and basically transfer data without having to spend any time
And
on
Mikel,
it.
how do you get around the fact that you could potentially be ending up in LinkedIn jail as a recruiter for viewing loads of profile and scraping data from LinkedIn? Because
Correct.
apparently they don't like that very much.
Yeah. So, like I said, LinkedIn would rather have you staying on LinkedIn and, like I said, basically monopolizing the entire platform in that sense. But what Drupal Cloud allows you to do is effectively, when importing these profiles, the way Drupal is able to operate is it won't trigger those LinkedIn profile views, meaning you can effectively download without limitations and even in bulk to very quickly create yourself an effective repository with tons of data, tons of profiles to then work with. And that data then, because necessarily having lots of contacts doesn't necessarily mean the job is done. Once you have that data and that scale of data as well, that can easily be transferred over, that's where I guess the magic then happens, because you have all the information to now have AI and automation effectively help you in screening them. So you don't have to, I guess, manually look through each profile one by one, or having to, I guess, read through the lines where sometimes you might just be tired or you have too little time and you end up just skimming through someone's profile too quickly and you miss out on, say, crucial information. So here's where basically the AI comes into play, but it's not just a filter, because of course the key, or say the starting point, is of course still going to be a keyword, because you have to mention what is it that you want to find. So the same kind of aspect in a filter does, I guess, come back into play, but it's the way it's executed, the way it needs to be put into practice that needs to change, because you don't want to find a profile with just that keyword. You're going to want to have basically that human intelligence that finds what are keywords similar to that one or what are variations that are relevant to me. And that's basically what Drupal Cloud allows you to then automate. And you can even set up a built-in ranking framework that entirely basically sets up those foundations for you. But just to
It
make
will
it,
rank all of the profiles that you, and do you have a limit of how many profiles you can scrape from LinkedIn?
there's no upper limit, so you can effectively create yourself even a database with hundreds of thousands. We in fact actually have some users that are in the millions as well.
Wow.
So yeah, very easily you can grow yourself a database. I guess of course larger
Okay.
companies have that, but because
And
yeah,
then
more
now it's going to rank them and who it thinks would be best for the role.
correct. But to show a more easy
Amazing.
example, I guess not to jump straight to the I guess just to show the process a bit more gradually, let's say that I have a reference keyword as mentioned that I guess, yeah, I need to search for someone. In my examples database here, I have mostly IT type roles. So let's say I'm looking for a Java developer. When I'm looking for that keyword, as far as the filters limitations go, I'm looking for only contacts with Java developer written in that profile. And that's going to give me, I guess, yeah, a limited number of results. So what AI can help me in, and this is, I guess, one of the easiest applications for it, because you don't have to mention the context and all that, I can simply, in this case, in Drupin's case, you can press this button over here that automatically runs a semantic search where AI is going to say, find me variations of Java developer that someone else might have mentioned. And now I didn't mention this earlier as there was a counter in total, but out of my database, I only had about 100 with the Java developer in the role. But now with the semantic search, which looks for still relevant results like say Java engineer, Java coder, software engineer, application developer, basically all relevant keywords that I would maybe have missed out of if I were writing them individually, have now automatically been generated, saved me lots of time, and I can now actually perform this search at scale without missing out on viable contacts. Because oftentimes there's this fear in saying I have to screen everyone manually because I'd be missing out on someone that is relevant but just didn't use the right keyword. But of course, if you're looking through everyone one by one, you're once again going to risk missing out because you're tired to look through the lines, you don't have enough time to screen everyone, and I guess, yeah, you'd end up then neglecting other aspects in that workflow. So this effectively gives you a way to cater to those expanded search filters, but then actually automating this, because you don't want to write the filter each time from scratch, especially in recruitment where you have a certain goal in mind, like for example, a job requisition, you have that job spec, you need to find a role with those criteria, with these certifications, these skills, these years of experience, and so on. What you can do is you can directly set up, it's one of the more graphical overviews that Tess also mentioned earlier.
Very visual.
Is you can set up a pipeline for a specific project you're working on. These pipelines can be customized, so I guess there's no real strict framework that you have to follow. So you can customize them based on either the client's needs or your internal company needs. So very flexible. But what you can do is directly on that job, say I'm looking for those Java developers for this role I'm hiring, you can directly define an ideal candidates framework directly in the jobs screening automatically. And this screening allows you to define not just larger varieties of keywords. In this case, I've focused it more on skills I'm filtering for. But not only can you add lots of variety to those filters, but you can also rank them. So effectively, as you would when you're humanly screening through a profile, some keywords are going to be more desirable. Like, for example, if someone happens to have, I guess in this IT type scenario, specifically JavaScript skills, I'd be, I guess, more inclined in hiring them for a Java developer role compared to someone, I guess, that is instead more focused on, say, Python or other programming languages. So with that in mind, you can set up basically that framework, that ranked setup, because you can score actual keywords that you're adding. If you click on a specific keyword, for example, this opens a bit more advanced menu where you can in fact move a score slider to basically apply these multipliers. And this basically boils down the workflow to, rather than repeating the same search multiple times over on each contact that you have to look through, you instead have to spend basically the entirety of the workflow into just thinking of what are the keywords that I am interested in, what are the similar keywords that I can have AI help me generate. There's also an AI function to analyze the job spec. So if you already have a nice job spec written, you can just paste that in and have the AI generate.
Could you save this as a template? So if the same role came up again, you've got all of the criteria in place, you just have to go and choose a new, should I say, cohort of people to scrape off LinkedIn.
Of course. So yeah, if you already have a nice framework or working in similar industries where you already have, I guess, a nice starting point, you can save this directly as a template and load it in at any time. But just to kind of add some extra details to that framework, on top of having the option to add multipliers to those filters, the added bonus is you can set keyword thresholds. Because as mentioned, also when screening through a profile manually, there's going to be sometimes aspects that are neat to have, but you're not going to force them onto a contact. And filters usually don't give you that luxury, because if you write too many filters, you have too few results to work with. If instead you write too few filters, you have too vague types of contacts. So what Mikel allows you to do is basically define a threshold for optional/desirable type keywords, which for some context in this case are all the blue keywords. So any blue keyword here is basically an optional desirable one. And I can use a slider here at the bottom to specify out of all the optional ones, how many do I want as a minimum? And effectively what this allows me to do is both keep it broad in this case. So I'm saying either of these three role titles are fine. But in the case of, say, skill or nuance type criteria, like, say, certifications or, I guess, data that is rarely found on a profile, but something that if you were manually screening, you'd want to highlight or keep track of, that can be instead added by moving this slider to 0, which I've done with the skills. Basically meaning that these are all keywords I want to look out for and I want to highlight automatically. I, of course, then can also add multipliers based on what is more desirable, but I don't want it then to actually limit my search. So if someone didn't have the time to write it down, I don't want to mistakenly miss out on them. But I still want to have the flexibility to know who took the trouble to write them down.
Could I also take this search criteria and then set it to go and search on LinkedIn via my account?
Unfortunately, as far as LinkedIn is concerned, since LinkedIn's filters are basically just filters and you're forced to just, like I say, you don't really have a ranking criteria, you can't achieve the exact same experience. But what you can do is you can convert this filter into a Boolean string. Drupal has a site search function that basically allows you to convert a filter or ranking framework that you have into a Boolean string, and that Boolean string can be pasted over into LinkedIn, other websites, or even actual search engines, which you can then use to directly source from. So that's basically a handy shortcut to compensate, I guess, in the missing ranking aspect that some other platforms have. But to showcase this ranking then in practice, sorry, let me know if...
No. If you've got any questions, pop them into the chat. This is really fascinating.
And yeah, so to showcase this actually in practice, all I'd have to take to effectively screen these profiles is now the screening framework here aside, so I can actually reset that. Once I have a framework built on specifically the job requisition I'm working for, all I'd have to do is select the pipeline or workflow that I'm working with, say Java developers, and all the contacts that now populate into my list are going to have this little score metric that appears on the right of their contact. And this effectively tells me automatically, did this profile meet my minimum requirements, meaning they met all the thresholds, all the mandatory or to be excluded keywords. And that score then gives me a reference point on, out of all the details I've mentioned, how many of those desirable keywords is the contact matching. So this means I effectively have a flexible way to tell apart, say, for example, Julia here, which met my requirements, but only 11% out of my desirable criteria, compared to, say, Patrick, which instead didn't meet my minimum requirements, or Maxime, which instead met, say, 26%, or Rahul, which meant 34%. So I have a very easy way to, in a scalable fashion, screen these contacts even just at a glance without having to spend too much time on them. And effectively, this gives me still the broadness to, like I said, take everyone into consideration rather than just a few people that I ended up having the time to look through. And to show this actually, to show the screening or shortlisting even more in practice, there's a shortcut to, first of all, only show fitting contacts. So that already helps shortlist the profiles by that. And of course, if you then have an abundance of contacts or simply want to prioritize the highest ranking ones, there's an easy slider to further shortlist by a certain score metric. So I could say only contacts with, say, 40% or higher out of all my desired criteria, and I can then potentially start with those. There's also a sort ranking, so you can effectively say, show me the highest ranking first. And in this case, I can see, for example, Philippe, which is, in this case, 68% fitting because they met most of all the skills I was interested in, the locations or years of experience, and so on. So you can very easily basically have the best of both worlds, where you can both have a broad filter by setting a very easy to reach minimum requirement, and also then a more specific filter by defining all the desirable factors that are still going to be ranked, so you're not going to miss out on them. So I can easily tell Philippe is the, I guess, great, best, good fit for my criteria, but I don't have to, I guess, sift through everyone manually to actually then find those hidden gems. And to then apply this, I'd say, once again, more onto a, like I said, workflow standpoint. Once you have screened those profiles, once you've found who you want to reach out to, once you've, like I said, nicely set up what the criteria you're interested in are, you're going to want to then, of course, reach out to them. There's going to be lots of reminders, and you're going to have lots of sequences, both for those that get rejected, those that move forward, and basically any step in the workflow. So rather than having to, like I said, fill up your calendar with reminders, having to write each message yourself, even with standard tools that allow you to create templates, it's still lots of copy-pasting action. So effectively, once again, something that helps save time, and one of the easiest things to apply without needing to have, like I say, any technical knowledge in that sense, is to actually have an automated sequence that allows you to simply schedule in advance follow-ups that need to be sent out and reminders that you can custom craft. So it's still your own messages.
That's the keeping in contact piece. So I just want to quickly stop you because we've got a great question that's come through from Bob saying, can you tell if a candidate is active or passive? I mean, I think you'd see on the circle where they'd say open to work, on their profile photo. So we could see that. But could you see it as someone's marked it in the background?
Yes. So in fact, one of the data that Drupal is able to directly extract from LinkedIn is in fact if they actively mention that they are searching for a new job. In fact, Drupal actually highlights this on the profile card as well. So let's say that, for example, we've got William here. William has a little green label at the bottom right, which is actually indicating that William mentioned that he's actively searching for a new job. But not only do I have this little label that I can actually highlight for me, you can also filter for it, of course. So I could say, show me everyone that is open to work, and that's going to show me, I guess, in this case, these 7 contacts that meets both my desirable criteria, and all of them are looking for a new job. But even furthermore, if I were to open those profiles, there's a dedicated job seeking status tab in here, which gives me the actual details of what roles is this contact actually actively searching for. So in William's case, he wants to be system analyst, software engineer, junior software engineer, Python developer, or junior Java developer, full-time or on contract, preferably in Ireland, but anywhere in the EU is, like I say, fine for him as well. And yeah, basically, not only can you easily filter for it and find it, but also actually see what they mentioned, wanting to be hired for. And of course, that's also why he's one of the better fits in the contact screening that we have in here.
And Mikel, just the second part of that question. So now, if you wanted to go and see, does Willen now have, I wanted to just check, is he already on my ATS or my CRM? So I've got, easy access to the history. Is that possible?
Correct, yeah. So each profile that we have in repository, you have easy access to basically the interactions you've had with them in the past. This will include also the interactions in pipelines and jobs. In this specific example book group, I haven't really launched any outreach sequences since I've, like I said, mostly just showcasing examples. But in the case of, say, for example, Janning's profile, I happen to have imported him as far back as since June 2023. And besides that initial import date, I happen to have added him to a variety of jobs or moved him through a variety of stages. Like, for example, in my Java developer job, then I moved him to a unsuccessful exit, probably for an example, and then I moved him back to screened. And I happen to also have had other instances where I imported him an additional 3 times in total throughout February and May of this year. Drupal has a built-in deduplication system, so of course, no matter how many times you happen to import them, Drupal will merge the data and effectively keep it nice and deduplicated. So, like I say, you don't end up having to stress about having, like I say, multiple instances of the same contact. But as far as outreach goes, because of course, maybe you've already sent them a job offer for a past role, or maybe you've already interacted with them, that also allows you to basically enhance that human aspect, because with the workload that you have nowadays, you likely don't have the luxury to look at the conversations you've had with each contact in advance before writing to them.
So if you use Jobin and you use your software, is there a need for a CRM system?
What? Sorry, I didn't.
Is there a need for someone to also have a separate CRM or ATS system if they have Jobin?
Yes. So Drupal has the option to directly have basically an integrated database, integrated ATS and CRM. So that's, I guess, the main, advantages you have with Drupal is having basically an all-in-one system, so you don't have to stress about data transfers where there's risk of data loss or just general, hassles from having to use different platforms. So the main, goal is to have a handy all-in-one system. But of course, you also have the option to utilize other ATS or CRM systems if preferred. So of course, it is always hard to, I say, convince the whole
Yes, to
team to
make a
transfer.
change.
Yeah. So of course, that is very flexibly,
No one likes that. No
customized.
one likes to change an ATS or a CRM system.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the, actually, just to continue the earlier messaging timeline conversation, basically, since some contacts might have had past interactions or past conversations with you, and you might not always have the luxury to, I guess, check the conversations with each contact to then mention, oh, here's another job that I have for you, or I guess to continue properly a conversation based on, I guess, what you've written to them earlier. These timelines not only give you a reference point of when have I written to them, but since at the end of the day, time is the issue, so we're not going to have the luxury of looking at the timeline necessarily, we can effectively filter for it automatically. Meaning I can actually filter for, let's say, I look for everyone that is fitting for my Java developer role, but I can then use an additional filter, which is in this case last message, or there's even another filter that can be used that effectively allows me to simply show everyone that I've already had a conversation with, meaning I can use a more specific or customized message that says, I've got a new job offer for you, or I've got another, or maybe happy to get back in touch. Basically, you can better humanize the conversation without having to, I guess, end up consuming too much time on it, which would then
Very
lead to
important after today's discussion, humanize the conversation.
but one of the more unique aspects, and probably, I guess, the cherry on top of today's conversation, probably, that I should have probably covered also a bit earlier, is that with AI, as mentioned earlier, one of the main issues you have when writing a message, when personalizing that conversation, is you need to provide it sufficient context for it to actually make a relevant message for the profiles you're writing out to. So oftentimes, when someone tries using AI, they, I guess, go the easier way out and just say, write me a message. And it ends up making just a two type of generic conversation since it doesn't have the data it needs to work with. But what Drupal Cloud does is, since it's automatically providing you with all the data you need, effectively what I can do is, at a large scale, while still having the automated follow-up sequences or reminder sequences so I don't have to, I guess, remember each step myself, I can straight away use AI and custom build a prompt of my own where I ask the AI what I wanted to do and have it make use of the data of that contact to actually personalize it specifically to, in this case, Philippe's profile. Using an example here I have in practice, these are all custom built prompts, so you can very easily build them and basically learn the prompt engineering, as mentioned also with Tess, so cater them to any scenario you need. And in my case, I'll actually show the prompt I'm using later on in a minute. But basically, I'm saying that I want to write a nice icebreaker message that is unique to the information about this contact that will explain why this contact is a viable fit for whichever job I'm selecting here. So in this case, for my Java developer job. And together with that, you can then, of course, combine it with your own message. So you don't have to rely exclusively on what the AI is writing. You can write also, in this case, I'll just write as example, but you can combine any other piece of the sentence you want or any potential call to actions or links that you need to add. And if I now press on show preview, it's going to actually auto-generate that message for me saying, hi, Philippe, your wizardry in Java and knack for problem solving caught my eye. Fancy bringing up some unique software solutions as our Java developer. Your expertise would be a game changer for us. It's a nice, friendly icebreaker message that's been customized to Philippe's styling. I'm guessing if I now look at his, summary or profile data, he mentioned, probably being a Java developer wizard, or something that makes the conversation, more lighthearted, more personalized, but also gives me the luxury of having sufficient time to not only have a more genuine sparked conversation, but I can also then generate follow-ups automatically so that I can stay in touch. But these prompts can all be custom built, customized.
Mikel, I'm going to stop you there because we've got 1 minute left. I don't want Crowdcast to boot us off without saying a big thank you to Tess for her time. Thank you so much for joining us as our resident HR and AI expert. Really appreciate you having here. Mikel, I think you've proven that Jobin is a fantastic tool. I have put both of your LinkedIn profiles into the chat, so I'm hoping you're going to get off this call, hopefully go make a cup of tea or whatever you need to do. I need to go and find some lunch. It's been one of those days. People will contact you and have lots of inquiries for your businesses. But thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Mikel and I are actually running a 4 series around this AI in the HR space. So look out for our next one. We're doing 1 a quarter. So look out, stay signed in for the Crowdcast and Recruiting Gym. And we look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Have a great afternoon and enjoy your bank holiday weekend, those of you in the UK.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you all. And looking forward to speaking with you on the next session.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.